Welcome to the Channel Surfers. I'm John McCabe, and I'm joined, as always, by my very good friend and co-host, Jeff Lennon. How you doing, Jeff?
John, I'm doing fantastic as always. And it is a special week, not just for the guests that we have, but there's a great golf event that's going on. So we're a little preoccupied, but I think this is going to be a great podcast. So I'm excited.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree, and I think I had to turn off that great golf event because it was distracting me and aggravating me. So, but yeah, I'm really excited to have this guest on because she's someone that we both worked with in the past, and just an amazing person. And through the years after working with her, people mention her name and I'm like, oh my God, I know Helene. She's so awesome. And everybody agrees with me, like, she is awesome. She's the greatest. So without further ado,
In that octave, they do it in that octave
yeah,
too.
it's
Just so
something
you
like
know. Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So we really would like to welcome a very good friend of ours, Helene Ervin, who is a master of channel operations. And that's really why we want to have her on the call today, or have her on the podcast, because we want to talk about channel operations. It's a piece of our podcast we haven't really dove into, but it's so important. So Helene, thank you for joining and welcome. You are special friend number, I don't know how many special friends we have, but you're
I think
special friend
7 or
from
8.
Channel Ops.
I think you're 7, the Magic 7. We'll call you the
Magic
Magic
7.
7.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. I really appreciate this. And I feel like with that introduction, I need to join your podcast more frequently so I can feed my
Absolutely.
ego. That's really nice.
You can
Thanks.
join anytime you want.
So, or we could just record that and you could just like play it, like just
That's
play
true.
it
Sure, I
on
can have
repeat.
my ringtone. Yeah,
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you on a loop.
thanks, guys. I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Like, I'm really excited. I think you both know partner operations is kind of a passion of mine, and so I can sit and talk about it for forever. So, yeah, like I said,
That's
thanks
awesome.
for having me.
Well, Helene, why don't you give our audience a little bit of a background about you, like how you got into channel, where you're at, what you're doing, and maybe a little insight into channel operations or partner operations.
Sure. Yeah. So, in fear of kind of telling everybody how old I've been in partner operations for a really, really long time, right? And it's funny how I got started. I always tell folks I actually started my technology career in marketing operations. And so I spent a couple of years doing market operations, and I realized, yeah, I'm not quite as fond of doing things on the top of the funnel. You know what I mean? I remember sitting and I was at Oracle through one of their acquisitions, and I do remember a colleague of mine in marketing in Cisco. She gave me a call, and it was one of those tough days where everything that could go wrong went wrong that day. And I remember she called me, and I picked up the phone, and she basically said, "Hi, what's going on? Are you happy today?" And it was just the perfect segue into, and I kind of went, you know what? I don't think so. And
Wow.
that started the conversation. It was just amazing. I always look back upon that. If I didn't pick up that phone call, or if that wasn't the question that she asked
Yeah.
me, like what would have happened? And she pitched the idea of coming and doing channel operations, or actually at that time it was partner marketing, focused on the alliances side. As you both know, the company that I'm referencing, which is FireEye, right? And I said, I don't know if I should. I don't know anything about partners. I don't know anything about partner marketing.
Perfect.
Yeah, and she said, you can learn.
You're
Let's do
hired.
it. Exactly. And it was funny. And I came in, and it was a steep learning curve, right? I mean, coming from the marketing world, in especially Oracle and my previous stint at Cisco, I didn't know nothing about partners, right? It was one of those things where I'm like, yeah, those partners, just those people. And honestly, that was what I thought about. But then as soon as I kind of joined FireEye and learned about partners and what they do, it's one of those moments where I say the light bulb popped up, and I went,
Wow.
that's what I meant to do. So
Mm,
that, that's my journey
that's a
into.
great story. That's a really good story. Hey, help our audience understand what is channel or partner operations. What does it do for the channel? Because I personally have only had that luxury a couple times, and I could tell you it's amazing and it really helps. But to help our audience understand what is partner operations.
You know what? It's funny. I always think of partner operations. I try to describe to people who don't understand it. In its really in its most simplistic form is my job is to make it easy to partner with whatever company I'm at. And what I mean by that is, are the processes we have correct? Are the systems? Are
Mm,
the tools? I think of myself as, you guys remember the story of like the elves who work on the shoes overnight, right? And then the shoemaker wakes up and the shoes are all done. Like that's what I like to think of my team, right? We are the folks that interact with the sales teams, interact with everybody, and they go, "Hey, I need Helene for you to, set up a process around something, right? What just called put a process around how partners can easily download assets in the partner portal, right? Very simplistic, right? Then my team
yeah.
comes and figure out, and we
Okay.
make sure how do we get it done, how do we align, and so yeah, I think of my not just because I'm 5'2", but I do think of myself as the little elf on the back end that just kind of makes things happen. So
I'm glad you said that. I was going to say little people. So you're technically little people that work third shift.
yes, pretty much. Yes, thanks, Jeff. Appreciate
I
that.
like it.
You're
I
welcome.
like it.
That's what I'm here for. Clarification.
Well, that is, I mean, look, to me, that is a great explanation of partner operations. And I think from my standpoint, we're, leading channels and building channels, you know, having someone who's doing kind of the back end stuff that you need to get done, helping with content, adding to the partner portal, putting together, the spreadsheets that you need to show progress in each particular partner, revenue, goals, things that I don't have time always to do. When I'm a one man shop, yeah, I got to do it. When I have that ops person
Yeah.
who can help me, it's amazing. It's like just a load off
And
your
one of the
your
things
back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the things I actually love about being here at Cloudflare is I don't know if you guys can read the title, but I do strategy and operations, which I actually
Mm,
love because when
yeah.
you do operations only, right, sometimes you end up being very much like here's a problem, Helene, just go get it done. Where a strategy, I really like this portion of the role as well. And I think it goes hand in hand because then
Yeah.
you really become and you have a seat at the table and you
Yeah.
talk about how do you grow the revenue with the partners, right? And then you kind of, you do operational strategizing in order to figure out how to get there. You build your roadmap and then you make it happen. So to me, this has been a really
Hmm.
exciting aspect of this role as well. It's not just the operational piece, but like I said, having a seat at the table and kind of
Mm,
helping build that strategy and that roadmap as well.
So I have a question. So if you were building, which is kind of what you just walked through, if you were building out a new channel program, right, and you're doing the strategy, what do you consider to be the important pillars that you
great
need to
question.
have, right? The four legs of the table, so to speak. What are those important things, those important pillars that an organization needs to start looking at if they want to scale their partner teams through operations?
I think a lot of what, for me, I think what's important on kind of the operations side is making sure that you align strategically with your leaders, right? I think that's really key. You have to understand what their strategy is. Like, are we going to a motion where we're going to hit the alliances with joint solutions, right? Or are we going to, do something that's more focused on your traditional resale channel? So I think
Mm,
that to me, understanding the strategy is key to making sure that you're successful in operations and then having a voice to say, hey, if
Hmm.
this is our strategy, here's what we have to do. That
Yeah.
kind of segues to the next point, Jeff, a clear roadmap. To me, I think that's really important is the strategy is very high level, right? I mean, I think we've all been in high level strategic conversations. Sometimes it's one or two statements, it's a mission
yeah.
statement. And the fun now gets into is how do we make it happen? So I think, like I said, building that roadmap, I think is very, very key. And then I know you asked for four legs, but my stool only has three legs, Jeff. So the
That's
third
okay. That's a stool. That could be a stool, right?
so the
That's right.
third leg is going to be really the executive support, right? Now you built the
Oh, yeah.
strategy, now you build a roadmap, and you have to have the executive support and across the company, not just the partner leadership team, but the field, the executive team,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
whatever you build, they're going to have to really support it. So you really need a strong leader and strong executive presence to really be successful.
Amen to that. That is something I preach all the time. I don't take a job unless the executives are fully behind building a channel and committing to it because I've been in those situations where they don't, and you're just, on your heels the whole time trying to prove it, and
100%. Or you build a roadmap and you start executing, and then you're ready to launch, and executives are like, no, we don't want to do that.
mm-mm.
And then you kind of go back to the drawing table, right? I think we've all been in positions like that. So, and that's how you unsuccessfully, right? Kind of, focus on the partners.
That's it.
Damn.
I totally agree with that for sure.
So what would you say are the three biggest? I'll go to three since you use three stools or
I'm
three.
going to give you four answers on this one now. So, but sure.
No, it's okay. We're gonna stick with the power three. I'm a big three guy from a marketing, right? The power three. But what would you say are the top three challenges that you currently face or that you're challenged with? Not just from your business, right? But from an from a market perspective, like trying to build out that channel from an operations perspective. What do you see as the biggest challenges that you have to constantly, plan for and work around from a day-to-day perspective?
I think as we all know in the partners, right? They have tons of vendors they can work with. So I think for me, it's the differentiator, right? Like, how do
Mm,
you differentiate yourself, and your company and your program and your processes with those partners, right? How do you ask your partner to double down with you and kind of go on the journey with you, right? I think that to me is one of the biggest hurdles, is kind of just
yeah.
being able to explain the story, explain the product. I mean, everyone's got great products, and I think sometimes products really can sell. But at the same token, it's really as your partner kind of goes, well, how do I sell you? Why do I want to sell you? And so you have to kind of build that differentiator, right? And
Hmm.
sometimes that is a hurdle because, sometimes it's like, do you have the right incentives? Do you have anything else? But to me, that's kind of one of the big hurdles. The second one is processes, right? I think that, and that's where I kind of tie into, is a hurdle. You want to be able to tell your partners how they can make money, because that's really important. I mean, at the end of the day, as much as we love our job, right? If we're not making money, we're not putting, dollar bills in our pockets, right? It's not worth it. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be honest. I mean, anyone who says that they love their job and they do it for free, we know they're not being honest,
No.
right?
Especially
And
partners.
so,
Yeah. They're all about, like, that's the number one question. Like, what do I make on a deal? And I'm like, I try to make it very attractive for them. So they have incentive to go and sell
Yeah.
with me, but
and
definitely
so
not.
with that comes kind of the operations and the alignment of that, right? How do you build the right program that makes sense? How do you make sure that you have the right structures in place? How do you build systems and tools so they know, it's the consistent model and transparency. I know those are kind of words that we throw around all the time, but I think for partners, because they're working with so many vendors, right, they have to really know that when they work with you, you're going to be transparent, you're going to be consistent, right? They call John McCabe for information one day, and then they call
Yep.
Jeff Lennon the next day. They better get the same information. They better know how to consistently, sell
Hmm.
your product.
Hmm.
And third is, our lovely channel conflict, right? That's always a hurdle. I figured when in this
That doesn't
podcast I
happen.
was up.
There's no channel conflict, is there?
It's a myth. It doesn't happen.
Doesn't.
Um, but it's addressing that, right? I don't think I've ever been at a company that doesn't have some level of channel conflict or some aspect of channel
Hmm.
conflict, right? I think us and folks in the partner organization, we know, that there will always be, and it's just how you navigate that. And I think it ties into the other two pillars of, how do you make sure you differentiate yourself? How do you build the processes? Because you really have to negate that
Yeah.
channel conflict.
Well, to your point, and we brought this up on an earlier podcast, something I learned way back. I'm not going to date myself, although I did date myself one time with a Hawaiian shirt, right, John? So
Oh, that's right. The one
1980,
that you
1980
got a
something.
Kmart.
But anyway,
Yeah,
Like from the original Hawaii 5-0. Is that kind of what you're talking about, Jeff?
I'm talking like pre-Magnum time. Okay,
Wow. All right.
just saying,
you're
just
talking
putting it
when
out there, right?
Kmart was still a thing.
Yeah, back when it was the store. But anyway, um, but no, when you talk about conflict, I found it interesting because something I learned really, really early when I started leaning into partner, because that's what they called it back then. It wasn't channel, it was partnerships. And I'll never forget this. As I was working with a VP executive at EMC, his point was, if we don't have conflict, we're not doing something.
Mhm.
Like
Right.
something's not right.
Yeah.
So if you're not having conflict in your channel, you're probably not as pervasive in the market as you think you are,
Yeah.
because you want to have these things. And I was, at the time, I was like, no, you don't, like, right? You're like, oh, you don't want conflict, but you're going to have it if you're out there and you have multiple people trying to help you sell your stuff. You're going to bump into things. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And
So
it's demand, right? If you have the demand, then you're going to have
exactly,
always people clamoring for it. So yeah, completely agree.
exactly.
Yeah. And I think there's so many different conflicts that you can face. Internal conflict. Rep doesn't want to give a partner a deal. It doesn't want to give them more points. They want to try and get the least amount of points they could give so they make more money. There's the partners taking your deal to another competitor. That kind of conflict.
Yep.
There's the conflict of a rep bringing in another partner, even though another partner deal reg. Like there's so many different conflicts, and you got to deal with all of them. And I was being facetious saying it doesn't happen, but it's a daily occurrence, and it's not a bad thing. Like Jeff said, I think it's part of what you have to deal with, right? And how do you deal with that as an ops person? Because you're the one manning the partner portal and understanding when the deals come in and how to manage them and how to flow them through the system, right? How do you manage that conflict that way?
I think that for me, I always like to give people the benefit of the doubt, right? Like give people benefit of the doubt that they are. I know, Jeff. Yeah, I know. I'm going anti kind of your beliefs here, but yeah, giving people the benefit of the doubt is that maybe the channel conflict exists simply because it's an education thing, or people aren't aware, or people. I mean, how many times have we heard phrases like "disty tax" and "why do we do this" and "why do we do that"? Like, I mean, it's things that we hear all the time when we're in the partners world, right? But so as I think about it, and from that perspective, like giving people the benefit of the doubt, how do I make it as foolproof as possible to reduce the amount of channel conflict? So when I say things like that, John, like you mentioned the partner portal, right? So yeah, how do we streamline it? So when a deal reg comes in, it's very upfront. We collect enough information to give the field the ability to understand this deal coming in, how to convert it, who's the partner, who's the right contact at the partner, so they get into the system. And once it gets into the system as an opportunity, right? How do you build these system gates or reminders that say, hey, now that we've got this partner in, right? Don't forget they have to buy through distribution. Don't forget this partner also gets, their programmatic discount. And don't forget, when you do send this quote out, it should go to the partner. It should not go to the end customer, right? So as I think operationally, what I do is I have to build those kind of guardrails in place that make it foolproof, right? So as you're driving a car, you've got your lane markers, right? And people stay or should stay in their lane markers, right? And so this is what I feel operations does is we build the guardrails, we build the lane markers, and then we build kind of the instruction manuals that say this is how you should drive your car, and this is how you should stay in the lane, and this is why you stay in the lane. So that's kind of how I think about operations and channel conflict.
Yeah, that's a
So
great
do you
point.
have any other, I don't know, tools or tactics that you've used or that you even utilize today to kind of help you through that process and how you execute, right? Because what you just described is creating as frictionless a process for partners and the sales teams as possible so that it just becomes a natural motion.
Yep.
So any types of tools or tricks that you currently are using or leveraging today that might help some of our listeners?
So it's funny you say that, Jeff. And so for me, I think it's
It is funny. It is funny because you're going to laugh.
You're gonna laugh. You're gonna laugh, Helene.
I always laugh when I talk to the two of you, but I think for me, it's about utilizing the systems and tools that you have currently. And the reason I say that is if you keep introducing new tools that our field is not used to, they're going to, right? Because if really think about it from an AE and a field perspective, they want things as simple as possible. So for me, Jeff, I would actually have to say is I introduce as less new tools as possible. I make it so therefore it's almost like think about like a guided journey, right? Like you go in here, you hit this button, it should go there. Now, albeit nothing is perfect, right? If it is, I'd be out of a job. So we're constantly building on this. But some things that I feel is really helpful is, job aids. As silly as that sounds, you build a job aid, right? That says, hey, when you go here, you click this button, this is what it does, right?
Right.
And you kind of help kind of navigate very clear, transparent information.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm recreating the wheel by doing any of these things, but I think it is just things that we just need to sometimes go back to the basics and realize that we just have to keep things very, very simple, right?
Yeah.
The
For sure.
KISS methodology, right?
I was going to say it. KISS. Keep it simple, stupid.
Mm.
Exactly. Keep it simple, Jeff. But
Well, in today's work environment, I don't know if you're allowed to kiss. I'm just saying, right? I mean,
that's true.
it can be a little weird. Just
That
saying.
is.
So for our audience, I have I'm very passionate about PRM, and our guest today is responsible for introducing me to PRM. And way back when we were at FireEye, I was invited to be a part of the Tiger team that tested out a particular PRM we were implementing, and Helene was instrumental in bringing that to the company. And since then, I learned a lot from that, and I've learned a lot about PRM. And Helene, I'm just curious, because you've probably been in the same situation as I've been in. You've implemented multiple PRMs. For your money, what are some of the very key important things that a PRM solution should provide for your channel team?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, John, because as I mentioned, FireEye was kind of my first foray into the partner world. So that was actually my first PRM implementation
wow.
too. So it was really learning how important a PRM is to the partner community, right?
Absolutely.
And I think for me, as I look at of the features and why a PM is important, is come back to the kind of what we talked about previously. Our partners have lots of vendors to choose from, right? And sometimes I feel like a company is not successful when they have the I am better than everyone mentality. You must sell me, and then they kind of say you must do what I tell you to do. And if you get very much that kind of dictatorship, right, kind of mentality, your partners kind of turn away from you, right? Because then you're just not easy to work with. And I think for me, the thing of the PRM is that is the conduit. That's the gateway that most of your partners come in and they will talk to you. And the reason why I say this is, like our chief partner officer, he's aligned at the executive level, right? If he's talking to like Accenture or Presidio or WT, any of our big partners, right? They're connected. Right. But when we talk about you when you're executing and you're selling, it's not your CEO. Sorry if any of the CEO of our partners feel that they're in there selling every day, but you know what I mean? It's like it is actually what I call us folks, right? Us folks are in there, and so you need to make it very easy, right? I call it for anybody who knows 7-Eleven here in the US, right? I always say that the PRM is a 7-Eleven. It is a convenience store. You need to be going there. And if your partner wants to go in there because they are feeling like they want a big gulp, right? AKA deal registration, they can go and immediately find that, right? Or if maybe they're feeling hungry and they want to get a hot dog. Yeah, I feel like I'm doing a lot of analogies, so apologies for that. But if they want a hot dog, AKA
7-Eleven will be a sponsor.
They help. So I like pictures. I'm a visual guy.
Yeah, so I think about that, right? You go 7-Eleven, you feel like a hot dog because you're thinking you want a co-branded asset, right? We'll correlate kind of snack foods, all that stuff. It's there for you, right? And maybe you're also like, hey, I'm at 7-Eleven and I see this ad for this discovery center, a museum that I want to go to. Hence, there's so it's a single source of truth, right? So you go into the PRM, it's supposed to guide the partner journey. So I think of that as like the convenience store. I think of that as the guide, right? It is how you help your partner navigate and working with you. So for me, things like ease of finding information, right? One single sign on, right? Maybe a search function, having the capability of getting your questions answered. All of those to me are, once again, back to the basics, nothing monumental or earth shattering, but you really just have to give your partners the ability to really transact and sell you without human intervention all the time, right? Exactly. Jeff, you and I talked about AI, we talked about this stuff. Like, we really just have to make sure that we start building all these new modern tools, and so it makes it easier for our partners to do this with us.
Wait a second, Jeff was talking about AI. That's not like him.
Jeff,
well, first of all, my new phrase is. Go ahead, John. Go ahead. No, you go.
We were talking earlier about the partner portal that I'm utilizing right now, and a couple of things. Like, it's easy to use. It's very easy to access. The content library is amazing to build. Easy access for partners. They each have their own room to go into, and it shows them everything they need to know. But here's the big plus of this PRM. They have an AI chat bot that they built into it. And you, as the vendor, throw all the information about your company, your products, everything, how to sell. I've created documents on how to sell my company, how the persona you want to talk to, the product information. And when the partner goes into the room and they have a question, a little bot pops up and says, "Hey, do you have any questions today?" And you're like, "Yeah, how do I sell Secupy?" And boom, my document pops up and shows them exactly how to sell Secupy, right? And that to me is like better than enablement. Going through the pain of enablement and trying to get it put into the PRM or try to get them certified. Hey, this bot now gives you the ability to do that, right? And it's kind of lends to what you were saying. You want information at their fingertips, so you don't have to be going and answering those questions 110 times a week,
100%, right? Like I'm attached to my phone in a personal life, right? And Google, I'm constantly on there asking questions, trying to figure it out. And if you think about our partners, it's the same perspective, right? If they have 50 vendors that they're choosing, and all of a sudden they need to figure out how to sell your developer product, right? It would be very easy for them to go to the portal and like, give me all assets pertaining to this with this circumstance, and have it be feed to them. We're not there yet, but something definitely that's in kind of our roadmap for the future, especially when John, you're talking about what makes a good PRM. It's that, right? It's the ability to kind of serve to our partners whatever it is that they're feeling and they're needing, because all partners are different, right? And their route markers are different and their needs are different. And even when they're talking about a specific transaction, it is different from today versus maybe tomorrow.
I look at a PRM as you might have mentioned it before, like a gateway, but also like a bridge to my sales organization, right? If you don't have that bridge, guess what? No one's going to travel over to see you, right? They're not going to reroute 75 miles to get to you when they can go a mile and a half over a bridge, right? So I think it's such an important piece of your organization. And I was talking to one of my old friends from FireEye who's running a channel right now, and I asked him, I said, is a PRM important to your company? He's like, not right now. And I'm like, wrong answer. You got to have it. You got to have that in place,
100%. Did you hear, John? I was saying I've influenced now. You're an analogy man now too. We're talking convenience store, bridges. Pretty much you're going to start doing dad jokes of Jeff rubs off on you too.
You have been an influence on my channel career, Helene.
Wow.
That's a good thing. I will tell you, like
Absolutely.
John's on the PRM side, and we had a great podcast. If you get a chance, I think it was 8 or something, but and I call it John's rabbit hole now, because my rabbit hole is AI, right? So it's like it's this never ending thing, and I chose rabbit hole just because it freaks some people out, which is all good. But
well, you have to evolve, right? Otherwise, you just get left behind. So
no, absolutely. But what's interesting is, and it's not so much what you guys are specifically doing. I don't want you to share anything but like John was just sharing, what's happening is, the AI or components or the agents, right? These things they're taking away some of the simple mundane things that need to happen, the repetitive things. But I also found it interesting, like when we were talking about this PRM product John mentioned, it's the instantaneous ability to get the information at the time that somebody's asking for it with a high level of accuracy. That's what's so important, because that person who, basically had the question, if they're not getting the answer there, what ends up happening? Does it fade? Do they move on to something else and they just never got the answer? Then they never take the next step. It's definitely interesting how it can impact the speed of enablement and the speed of execution for an organization.
And Jeff, just to add to that, it's not AI that might scrape some websites and maybe give you not the most accurate web information. It is exact information, because I'm feeding it my content that is accurate because we've created it, right? So it is a differentiator in that respect. It's not your typical AI, right? It's not your dad's AI. It's new. It's new AI. So
So here's a question. So, and again, keep it general, but like So what is the type of partners or partnerships? And I think it changes by,
Mhm.
like you said, whether it's an ISV, whether it's a GSI,
Yep.
but what are the types of partners that you look for? And it's probably an interesting question because it's going to be based on your go to market. But as you're going forward, right? If you're looking to drive the low hanging fruit or enable the business, I mean, where are the partners that you need to spend the most time with to help
Mhm.
grow the
Good
business for the
question.
reps? I'm just looking at your perspective. It's not a this is the be all end all, but I'm just kind of curious because you've been doing this for a while.
Thanks once again, Jeff, for calling out how old I am. I really appreciate that, man. But
I, I actually have a Hawaiian shirt older than you, so we'll leave it go. Okay.
it is. I think for me, it comes down to just like there are a lot of vendors or partners I work with, there's a lot of partners that we can work with as well, right?
Mhm.
And I think for me is just really finding that partner that you can connect with. And I
Mhm.
know that sounds kind of hokey, right? But it's the partners that really want to double down, and for whatever reason, maybe they love your product, maybe
Mhm.
they love the industry that you're specialized in. But for me, I feel like that is the number one key way to be successful is you've got to find the right partners. I think in the old school kind of channel strategy back in how many years ago, right? It was like the spray and pray method, right? You got as many partners as you could, and if they brought you like a $5,000 deal, that was great, right? Because they were just building business. I think that model's changing a little bit, right?
Oh, for
Because we
sure.
know that resources are really hard. Bandwidth is always tough, right? Human capital is just really rough.
Yeah.
So with that, you have to find the right partners to invest in. And so there comes a lot of conversation about what are the right partners, right? Are they the ones that double down? Are they going to be into an industry or market that you're not currently today, right? Are they in, enterprise areas that you're not? So it's kind of a broad, I guess, Jeff, depending on the route to market. But I think for me is the first thing always is, do you have the right partner ecosystem?
Mhm.
That to me is the number one
Yeah.
question that I think every partner team should ask is, are we investing in the right partners because we have the right partners, and will they invest back in us?
So do you leverage like a playbook around your IPP, your ideal partnership
We do. Yeah.
profile?
Mm.
Yeah. So you build a partner profile, right? You build it based on historical, you build it based on your experience, and you build kind of saying, hey, these are kind of where like things I mentioned, like, are these the partners in the industry, right? Are these the partners that are selling your competitors, right? Are
Yeah.
these the partners that, historically have sold you without any type of engagement by you, right? So obviously they love your product enough to do that. So that's
Right.
kind of where you build, and that's just kind of a small subset. And then you think about how do you find the right, even distributors? How do you find kind of the big global system integrators that are,
Mhm.
that play in spaces that you're. So if you think about that, you do build a perfect partner profile, the PPP, for
IPP. You know me.
You got a
IPP.
PPP problem.
IPP with the PPP.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do that, and then you do it for each route to market, right? Because it's all different.
Yeah.
So
And one thing also to add to that is, when I went to work at uh, a small startup that now is like one of the biggest in the industry, and our old boss from FireEye, I won't mention his name, he brought me over, and we were talking about like how to structure the program, and I said, one thing I don't like is these metal tiers. We're too small. Nobody's gonna care if we're like silver, gold, platinum, whatever. And he's like, yeah, I agree. And I said, and I also think we should really like not go too far and deep on partnerships. Just kind of focus on a few, see how it works out, and like you like that. And like I've used that everywhere now. I have two margins, and one for deal reg, one for me bringing a partner into deal. And I only have a certain number, like maybe 5 partners that I really zero in and focus on. And
yeah,
it's a lot better. I took over a partner program from a company, and my predecessor, she was compensated on the number of partner contracts she signed. And
yeah,
I came in, there was like hundreds of these partners. I'm like, they're not
Churn
doing
and
anything.
burn.
Why is this? It's just a waste of time,
Yeah.
yeah,
But I'm sure
exactly. No,
ops
no.
probably deals with that. You got to weed through the garbage of all these partnerships that aren't going anywhere, and you have to like fire them because they're not really doing anything. Why waste your time? You want to work with the partners that are selling, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's just like like anything, right? You want to engage with people that engage back with you. You
Mm-hmm.
want to work with people that that you enjoy to work with, right? And so if you think about it, and you can kind of go, if that partner's not engaged and they don't want really to sell my product, then why am I spending time with them? Just like they're like, I don't want to spend time with you because we're not in the industry of cybersecurity, for instance. So I would never want to sell Cloudflare, right? So
Yeah.
therefore,
Yeah.
why would I want to be your partner? So really, like I said, you just got to make sure that it's aligned on both sides.
Yeah.
No, that's
Well, look, I know
perfect.
we're kind of coming up at the
Yeah.
bottom of the hour here. Well, first of all, I just want to come back because when John and I were talking about trying, bring on different guests, and from an operations perspective, honestly, can't say enough great things about you. Had the opportunity to work with you very closely in two different capacities when I was at FireEye. And I always really enjoyed kind of the interaction because you would explain what the program was. And a lot of times it was some things got lost in communication. So I always really appreciated that and the work that you
Yeah.
did because
Yeah.
you could see like if things were there's a plan and there's a strategy and then there's a plan to execute and then you'd be like, well, people aren't following it. Like that's part of the problem, right? So but having you on, I really do appreciate it. You've
Yeah.
always been a great friend and
I echo that. And
Thank
yeah,
you.
and Helene, just working with you, you were tough. You wanted things done. You were running a tight ship, but you always were fun to talk to. You always picked up the phone. But it's from my standpoint, what I learned from you and brought to other companies, is just it just keeps me going, and I've had that knowledge from just working with you and being able to share with what you were putting out from a program standpoint or operation standpoint.
Thank you, guys. I mean, I really appreciate that. I love our time at FireEye, right? It is kind of the start of my channel career.
Mm.
And I always say that no matter how much a company is familiar or understands or partner friendly, there's so much education that still goes on, right? So I spend many hours of my day educating folks internally, externally on what partnering means. I always joke about when I walk into an internal meeting, I say I just need to get partner tattooed on my forehead because whatever we do, I'm going to ask, how about the partners? How about the partner community? And if you don't know the difference between a reseller versus distributor versus a GSI, I'm more than happy to sit down and kind of talk with you guys about that. So I'm glad to see that you guys enjoy that and not versus like, oh man, I Helene is just a pain in the butt to work with. So I really
chalkboard,
appreciate that.
chalkboard.
Like I said, I can talk about partner as hours and hours on end. Just ask people who are probably sick and tired of
I,
me talking about it.
I was on the other side. I was sales for a long time. Then I got into channel. And honestly, when I was in sales, I didn't really dig partners. They were taking money from me. But then I realized how important they could be when I closed a big deal. And the partner was a really big part of that, right? So I get it. You really have to have that passion to promote. What we do is important. And if executives and sales reps and people in the organization don't see that, once we are eliminated and they take channel out of the picture, they're like, oh, then we got to bring it back. Then how many times have you been like, I've been interviewing for jobs where they're like, yeah, we got rid of the channel, but we got to bring it back because we really see how important it is. Or new executives here is like, we got to have a channel. That's a
Yeah,
critical part of how we grow. So
100%. And
Yeah.
if I wasn't in the channel, I wouldn't have met the two of you. So there you go.
that's
It's
right.
like a bright
Right.
my life.
Well, I'll leave you with this, John. When you just said that, you triggered something, and that is, there was a situation happening this morning with this golf event, and being in the channel and partners, it's a team sport.
Hmm.
Oh
It
yeah.
is truly a team sport, and I think that gets lost on people. And it's great you can go out and sell, but you can have the best individual and let him go, and he's going to go by himself. What is that? If you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, you go with the team. And I
You
really think
win
that's
with
where the
many, you
partner.
lose alone. That's another good one.
Yeah. But I
Good.
but I really think that the partner is it's a team sport. And I think people,
Oh
when
yeah.
you start explaining it that way, Helene, it kind of clicked,
Yeah.
like that's what I think gets lost on people. They don't realize that it is a team sport. So
Yeah.
anyway. Well, this was
There's no
great.
I in team. My favorite sayings. There's no I in team.
I'm gonna have to like put these all on T-shirts and send them to you. So
Oh, we're gonna have T-shirts.
Oh yeah.
Something, and I'll just leave this. I'm gonna set it up. But one of the, I'm already laughing. So one of the things I picked up was a term, and I picked it up in my interview when I was going to FireEye by the VP for the East at the time, and he said to me, we don't need people coming. I don't need any more chug and hug reps. And I went, oh, what? And since then, and I'm going to give again, John takes the credit. John came up with the I'll call it the logo. So we're gonna have we are gonna have T-shirts, chug and hug T-shirts. We're gonna
I think
I
eventually
think
when we get like more than 10 listeners, I'm kidding. I think we're going to have like a Channel Surfers Chug and Hug event live.
nice,
Yeah.
nice. No, I mean, yeah,
So,
all the catchphrases, right? We gotta love it. My favorite, and it's on an operational side, is I do things manually automated. So just think about that and how it seems perceived to our partners. I'm like, yeah, I'll automate it for you. Sure.
yeah. So listen,
manually
this was such a great interview, and having you on was amazing. You're such a great person, and we think very highly of you. And we miss our time together, but
you're a great
just
you're a
being able
great
to
human being.
just introducing our audience to what a partner or channel operations organization does is important. The reason why we're doing this podcast is to help people that are in the field like we were understand how to do their job better, right? And
Yeah.
know what they need to be successful. And we try to have people on that can explain that. We've had a couple field reps, we've had marketing people, we've had industry experts, we've had authors, so we're trying to get people to understand how to do their jobs better. And you really help that, because operations, that no one really talks about operations. They're kind of the like you said, the elves in the at night working on the shoes, right? And they're so important. And if you don't have it,
Yep.
and you don't realize how important it is, then you're missing out. So, but
No,
thank you
I
so much,
appreciate it,
Helene,
guys. I
for being with us
appreciate you guys.
today. And you absolutely could come on again. And definitely, if you have a Hawaiian shirt, you can wear a Hawaiian shirt for the
I'm
next one.
gonna have to go hunt. So you just made me realize I have to go to Hawaii to buy an authentic Hawaiian shirt
Oh yeah, for
to join
sure.
the podcast again. So you guys gave me a vacation idea.
Good enough. Thank you so much. So, Jeff, again, thanks for hosting with me. This was a really good show. I can't wait to get it up and out there. For our audience, you could find our podcasts on all of the regular podcasting services. We have a website, www.channelsurfers.com. If you want to reach out to us, I'm John at channelsurfers.com, and Jeff is Jeff at channelsurfers.com. And as always, our LinkedIn page is always up and running, and we make announcements of every show release. And feel free to comment on it and like it and repost it and help spread the word on the Channel Surfers. I think we're starting to get the word spread pretty well these days. We're getting approached by people who, come to us and say that they learned so much from one of our episodes to get a job or to help them build an organization, right? So we're starting to get
Imagine
the
that,
word out.
Helene. Imagine that. Imagine
Yep.
that, Helene. I know. Just no, John's spot on, man. It's been a really great journey. It's been an education as well.
Yep.
So
Yep.
No, I completely agree. The partner world is a very small world, right?
It
So
is.
we always have to keep an eye out for each other. So
amen.
Absolutely. And you got to be nice to the people on the way up, because you don't want them kicking you when you're on the way down. I make friends with everyone, and I think Jeff does too. Jeff's got such a great reputation in the industry, and I think we both have
Iconic.
that same understanding. He's going to laugh, but that's what I hear about him. So, well, with that, we thank you again, Helene. Jeff, thanks again. And for our audience, please join us for our next episode, and we will talk again soon. Cheers.
You
bye,
got it.
everyone. Thank you.